I said to my lawyer, here's what we're actually going to do with Turning Point. What do you know? How do you reply to this, right? Could they make a thing out of this? Because technically you do have a non-disparagement clause. You have it for 12 months since the contract was officially terminated. Yeah, there's also things known in contract law as unforeseeable circumstances when you sign an agreement. And when I signed an agreement to go on tour with Charlie Kirk, I think it would be fair to argue that his assassination, his public assassination, was an unforeseeable circumstance. In fact, I signed on the dotted line to work beside Charlie Kirk because he built a company that I believed in, okay? And now everything that company seems to be about runs counter to my belief. In fact, there are strong contractual arguments to be made about unconscionable clauses. I would say it would be unconscionable for me to choose silence in the wake of Charlie Kirk's public assassination. It is unconscionable. I actually don't need a judge to decide on that. I don't need a judge to decide on that because the ultimate judge is in heaven. And I told you guys that you'd have better luck from keeping the sun rising into the sky than to try to keep me from investigating Charlie Kirk's assassination.
TPUSA, now headed by Erika Kirk, has sent a legal threat to Candace Owens. Now, I don't really know what the purpose of this might be. You'd think if you are on speaking terms with someone, you would just reach out to them. You know, if Erika Kirk had such a big problem with what Candace Owens is saying, if Candace Owens is saying something so factually incorrect, you would either see people en masse debunking it online, or you would have people simply, reaching out to her. Andrew Colvett has her number. You'd have Erika Kirk reaching, let's do another meeting, right? But you haven't seen that. So you got to ask the question, why are they sending a legal threat? Now, Candace posted on her Instagram story that she received a cease and desist letter from Turning Point USA. This was clearly just a threat to silence her. I mean, I don't know what else this really could be. It's further proof that TPUSA doesn't actually care about getting to the bottom of what's going on, about leaving no stone left unturned, as Erika Kirk said in her Fox News interview. Now Erika Kirk is calling for a speedy trial of Tyler Robinson. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like if they want the full truth to get out there and they want to make sure that, nothing is left uncovered, they would hope for the, I guess, not a short trial, not a long trial, but an appropriately length trial to make sure that everything is touched upon. They would want Candace Owens to do as much digging and research as possible to make sure that anyone who may have been implicated in this assassination is outed for what they are, a criminal. But that's not what we have now. They're telling Candace to shut up. All right. Now, the part that's very interesting, we're not going to react to the initial part of this video. It's a long video, right? But the part that is interesting about this, and the reason why they are choosing to go after Candace in particular, and the way they're going after Candace, is Candace has a non-disclosure agreement with TPUSA. Now, the contract with TPUSA and Candace Owens ended, I believe, in early to mid-December, December 17th, if I'm not mistaken. And that contract basically was an old contract that stipulated Candace Owens was, under contract to do speaking engagements for TPUSA. So, again, this just further debunks everything that was aired out by Adam Sosnick on Patrick Bet-David's podcast when they'd bring on people from TPUSA and they'd say, Candace doesn't have a relationship with TPUSA. It's been like 5 years since she did anything with TPUSA. No, that's not true. We know that Candace Owens literally little over than 12 months ago was doing speaking tours with TPUSA. So this is just further proof that what she was saying actually is true, and what the TPUSA spokespeople were saying was entirely fraudulent. All right. Now, what is interesting about this is I saw some people online saying, oh, Candace is cooked. Candace is cooked. She's so stupid. She was saying all this stuff, doing all these things while she had a non-disclosure agreement with TPUSA saying that she could not disparage the TPUSA organization. Now, I think that's a super one-dimensional way of looking at this. I think there's a few ways of looking at it. You could look at it like that and just be, a surface level, mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging dweller and say those things, right? But the truth of the matter is you have to look at what's actually going on here. If you really believe that Candace Owens is cooked because she's financially liable for all the things she's saying, you have to recognize that, she's sticking her neck out to try and get what she believes is the truth out there, knowing that she could be financially liable for damaging the reputation, so to speak, of TPUSA. That's one point that I want to make. Another point that should be made is if Candace Owens is going out and saying these things, well, you have to recognize that she really hasn't been disproven on any of it. Any of the so-called disparaging things that she said about TPUSA that they bring up in this cease and desist letter. And that just proves that she is really on the money with all the things that she's been pointing out. None of it's been refuted. None of it's been debunked. They've debunked things that she hasn't said, but they haven't been able to debunk the things that she has said. So actually, I think it just goes to show that her reporting has been all the more clear-cut, transparent, and on point as a result of the fact that she does have an NDA with TPUSA. The third and final point that I thought of when I learned that she has this NDA with TPUSA is simply that, also, I'd imagine Candace Owens and her husband, I think her husband comes from money, so they have a lot of money, and they can, they can play ball just like TPUSA can. Maybe not as much ball. I guess TPUSA raised like $250 million now since Charlie Kirk was unalived. But they can play ball. They can hire attorneys. They can do this. They have an attorney, right? But the other thing here that we need to remember is that every single company, every single, organization, nonprofit, whatever, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their either investors or their donors to make sure that the organization is either achieving its goals and its stated charter, if it's a nonprofit, or, making financially responsible decisions if it is a for-profit entity. And Candace Owens, as someone who I guess is under contract, I don't know what the exact framing of the contract is, but someone who at least is under contract with TPUSA and has an NDA with them, I don't personally think that she said anything extremely disastrous about TPUSA that hasn't been debunked, or that has been debunked rather. And I do believe that if you are contracted at an organization who has a lot of funders all across the country, big money attached to it, right? The donors, the individuals at the top of the organization should be doing the utmost to make sure that the organization is fulfilling the duties that are stated in the charter, making sure that the money that is, being allocated for various projects, various funds, various roles within the organization is not being misallocated. And of course, that nobody within the organization is responsible for unaliving the former director and founder of the organization itself. So you have to ask the question, isn't what Candace Owens is doing here, isn't that just actually guaranteeing the responsibilities that the organization itself should be upholding to the donors of TPUSA? Isn't she kind of just like trying to look out for the best interests of the donors and make sure that the organization is not wildly corrupt and is not compromised and didn't partake in facilitating in some way, shape, or form the unaliving of the founder and former director of the organization? I don't know. I feel like if anyone is, liable for not meeting the needs of the donors and not, acting in a financially responsible manner, it's the people that are saying, stop looking into this, stop questioning this, stop investigating whether or not there is some corruption at this organization. Those are my personal feelings on the matter. Just looking at this from the first few seconds, anyone who's saying, oh, Candace is cooked, she's so stupid, I'm like, No, actually, I get the exact opposite reading from this. I think that TPUSA is stupid for sending her a cease and desist if they are serious and actually filing some sort of lawsuit against Candace Owens, because you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen is discovery. Discovery is not a problem for Candace Owens. She's been quite clear that she wishes she could release more messages. She wishes she could do more in exposing what's actually going on behind the scenes. But obviously, you know, there are legal repercussions in place if you do certain things, say certain names, release certain texts. She has released some texts, but in discovery, that is all going to come out. In discovery, everything is going to come out. In discovery, there, you know, whatever TPUSA is hiding right now that may be protected by NDAs of this nature will be aired out to the public, to the donors. I'd imagine in a lawsuit of this making, you would have individuals like Erika Kirk or maybe Andrew Colvett who would be forced to give some sort of a sworn testimony. How's that going to go? If Candace Owens' attorney gets to ask whatever questions they want to Andrew Colvett and to Erika Kirk under oath, this would be a recorded video, right? Effectively an interview that would be released to the public. I don't think that's going to go well. So really, is Candace Owens stupid? I personally think that Candace Owens is the person who benefits the most by being sued by TPUSA. I mean, we'll have to see. Time will tell. But I can't imagine that TPUSA would want to open themselves up to that much liability where all of their personal financials, all of their personal communications, all of their personal information and would get exposed. And also they'd have to answer questions under oath on video to Candace Owens' attorneys. I don't think that would go well. But anyways, let's see what Candace Owens has to say about the specific points that are drawn up in the cease and desist letter.
Not good people, and has suggested that Turning Point USA and TPUSA tribute to Turning Point USA, and she has stated that there is definitely due to make statements in violation, standing the reminder that sit down. To Ms. Owens Farmer, in the hopes that providing her with the truth would get her to stop disparaging Turning Point USA in violation of the party's contracts. Yet, notwithstanding the reminder that my letter provided to Ms. Owens Farmer of her obligations and the good faith efforts made by Turning Point USA's leadership to answer her many questions, she has continued to make statements in violation of her contractual obligations in a manner that is reckless, knowing, and intentional. For example, she has published a list of lies that she attributes to Turning Point USA, and she has stated that there is definitely financial impropriety at the company. Which lie on our Turning Point USA list of lies did they correct? Nothing. They gave an excuse for the lies, and I told the public about the excuse. They said Andrew went rogue. Andrew did this. I don't know why he said that. I don't know why they said that. They have conflicting answers about the drones. Brian Harpole says this. Andrew Colvett says this. Their lawyer says that. So what am I doing wrong by tracking that? Isn't the issue that you lied? Not the issue that the public noticed? There's not a single thing that they cleared up that I then said, oh, okay, I just completely had that wrong on our list of lies. They conceded. Erika came out and said, Charlie, I had his phone. He never said the night before that he was afraid he was going to die. She said on Glenn Beck. They then get in front of me. They say, okay, yeah, no, he did. I didn't know because it was in a special, app. Yeah, he also messaged Dan Flood. I didn't know because we're not talking to Dan Flood. Okay, what am I missing here? This next sentence sends me. She has claimed to know that there are people at Turning Point USA who are not good people and has suggested that Turning Point USA and TPUSA Faith have been infiltrated by military operatives. Yes, I do know there are people at Turning Point USA who are not good people. I stand by that. It's the truth. I specifically said Tyler Boyd was a sexual deviant.
What possible damages could TPUSA hope to extract from Candace Owens because she said that she knows that there are bad people at TPUSA? Well, I mean, that could mean anything. That could literally mean anything. Okay, she said she's explicitly referring to Tyler Bauer's sexual deviancy here. So I guess that's one person that she claims is bad at the organization. But what else? I mean, what? Does she think like the janitor at TPUSA is bad? Does she think that the person that serves the coffee is bad? What does that really mean? What, are they going to sue her for $1 million? They already have $250 million that they raised since since Charlie Kirk was unalive. What do they hope to extract from her? Because she said that TPUSA has bad people. I don't know.
I stand by that. It's the truth. Turning Point USA Faith, the military. I'm sorry I looked up these people. I'm sorry that Rob McCoy is out there defending somebody who went to prison for molesting kids. The issue is I noticed, again, where is the lie that I have told? Let's see if we're going to get to it. Moreover, it continues. She has accused a Turning Point USA employee of being intentionally evasive in an effort to clear Erika Kirk's name, specifically as to whether Ms. Kirk was at Fort Huachuca in or around an alleged secret meeting that Ms. Owens Farmer has linked to Charlie Kirk's assassination. Now, I told the truth. I said that I requested this multiple times over weeks, and each time I was given an excuse. That's just the truth. I was told she was really busy, and then she popped up at a game, and I said, hey, can I get something? And they sent me something that wasn't what I asked for. So that's just the truth. And then said that it was on me last week because I had my son's birthday and family in town that I was going to send you a screen record.
Again, here it's like, so Candace Owens says that one person was being evasive at the TPUSA organization because they weren't identifying the whereabouts, the, supposed alibi of Erika Kirk during whatever the date was, September 9th, or September 8th it was. Where was she on September 8th, right? That was the intentionally evasive part, and then they sent the text showing where Erika Kirk was on September 9th and said that, she wasn't at some fort in Arizona, even though no one accused her of being at Fort Huachuca, and no one accused seeing Erika Kirk on the 9th. It was about the 8th, and it was about seeing her at a hotel near the fort. So that's the point here.
What I actually wanted, and I said maybe it's because there's a third party there, it's not clear, but to date, they haven't sent me what I asked for. So I told the truth. In short, Ms. Owens Farmers has not put an end to what she has expressly admitted to be a flood of allegations against people at Turning Point USA, people at Turning Point Action, and people who work for the Charlie Kirk show. Yeah, I'm sorry, Andrew Cole, that sucks. My December 2nd letter, it continues, emphasize that Ms. Owens Farmer must cease her disparaging comments. And this letter reiterates that obligation that includes, in part, ceasing to state or imply that Turning Point USA and or its employees, agents, directors, officers, affiliates, programs, or services played any part in Mr. Kirk's assassination. Ms. Owens Farmer must not state or imply that Turning Point USA and or its employees, agents, directors, officers, affiliates, programs, or services knew about the assassination beforehand, participated in the assassination day of, or covered up the truth about the assassination after the fact. Okay, that's it. That's the guts of the letter. Now, I've been very clear that there's only one reason, again, kill me for having common sense, that people lie. Why do people lie? Because they're covering something up. There's no other reason to lie, actually. I mean, you could be pathological, I suppose. You could just do it for funsies. But when you consistently tell lies, it's usually because you're covering up something. Even if it's a small lie, my kid tells a little fib, it's because they're covering up something that they don't want you to find out, right? So because Turning Point USA is lying, it is a totally fair and reasonable assessment that they are engaged in a cover-up. Now, are they protecting one another, their mistakes that they made? Are they trying to protect the organization because they know there are some bad eggs, loyalty to one another because they knew each other, going back a decade, blackmail? Who knows? I can't tell you why, but I can say that when people lie, it's because they're engaged in a cover-up. And that is something I'm going to stick by, an opinion I'm going to stick by, actually. I said to my lawyer, here's what we're actually going to do with Turning Point. What do you do? How do you reply to this, right? Could they make a thing out of this? Because technically you do have a non-disparagement clause. You have it for 12 months since the contract was officially terminated. Yeah, there's also things known in contract law as unforeseeable circumstances when you sign an agreement. And when I signed an agreement to go on tour with Charlie Kirk, I think it would be fair to argue that his assassination, his public assassination, was an unforeseeable circumstance. In fact, I signed on the dotted line to work beside Charlie Kirk because he built a company that I believed in, okay? And now everything that company seems to be about runs counter to my belief. In fact, there are strong contractual arguments to be made about unconscionable clauses. I would say it would be unconscionable for me to choose silence in the wake of Charlie Kirk's public assassination. It is unconscionable. I actually don't need a judge to decide on that. I don't need a judge to decide on that because the ultimate judge is in heaven. And I told you guys that you'd have better luck from keeping the sun rising into the sky than to try to keep me from investigating Charlie Kirk's assassination.
So I fully agree with Candace there. I mean, even if they ruled, I guess, in a hypothetical objection to the contract and stated, no, there was no unconscionable whatever thing that she mentioned. I'm not an attorney. Even if they said, no, the unforeseeable event or crisis, isn't merited here in the unaliving of Charlie Kirk. Okay, what are they going to go after her for? Seriously, what? Okay, clearly TPUSA has not been financially burdened as a result of Candace Owens. They've raised $250 million since Charlie Kirk was on the line. So what are they going to claim? Are they going to say, well, we've had a massive decline in our funding since Candace Owens started to open her mouth? No, they've had record funding. The funding, it's like, I've never seen an organization have such a surge in funding in U.S. politics of any, nonprofit, political action committee. I mean, that's insane. Miriam Adelson spent like $200 million on Trump in his campaign, was it 200 million, or that's how much it was, right? And Eric, how much did Elon Musk spend? 200 million as well, I think. So like, you're talking about far more, right? 25% more than the largest political contributions to the Trump campaign in 2024 that TPUSA has been able to achieve in, 4 months? It's been 4 months now. That's insane. So they can't argue that, Candace Owens has financially hurt TPUSA as an organization. They still, I'm sure, get a lot of viewers, so they can't really say that their viewership has declined and the official channels and shows and whatnot. I'm sure they've had a surge in volunteers to the organization and new chapters being opened up. So what could they possibly argue here? What are the potential, claims that they could make against Candace Owens? I don't know. What could they ask a judge for other than like a cancellation of her contract, which I'm sure that Candace Owens has already asked for and would be, or they did have that, but they have an extension of the NDA for an additional 12 months after the contract ends. So that's the problem here. I don't really know. I find the whole thing extremely suspect. I don't think that they'll go through with a lawsuit, because if they do, I mean, random tidbit here, but like, Logan Paul is the perfect example of why these sorts of defamation lawsuits can have extreme blowback, because, CoffeeZilla did all these exposés on Logan Paul, and initially Logan Paul attacked CoffeeZilla, the internet crypto sleuth, journalist, investigator, right? And he was like, no, CoffeeZilla's wrong. I'm not corrupt. It wasn't a crypto scam that I launched with this project he called CryptoZoo, where a lot of fans of his lost a lot of money. And then CoffeeZilla doubled down, exposed even more. And Logan Paul said, you know what, CoffeeZilla, you're right. I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, thanks for catalyzing this moment, and I'm going to fix everything. Turns out Logan Paul fixed nothing. So then CoffeeZilla exposed the fact that still no one was paid out, wrongs were righted or whatever, nothing really changed. And then what did Logan Paul do? He slapped a defamation lawsuit against CoffeeZilla. Now, what ended up happening was CoffeeZilla said, okay, sue me, whatever, I'll do a GoFundMe for my legal fees. He did that. He got really good attorneys. The attorneys were able to question Logan Paul under oath. And apparently that testimony did not go well, because Logan Paul's attorneys are now freaking out and trying to hide this testimony from public eyes, which is not going to work. And it's going to have immense blowback for Logan Paul, who has he's a financial behemoth. And now there's a class action lawsuit against Logan Paul for the CryptoZoo scam. And, all these people now have a ton more information as a result of the discovery process that CoffeeZilla was able to undertake with his attorneys in this defamation lawsuit that was thrust upon him by Logan Paul. So I see a similar timeline evolving here if in fact TPUSA moves forward with a lawsuit against Candace Owens. I think Candace Owens is going to be the one to benefit the most. I think the public is going to benefit. And I think that those who are hiding stuff at TPUSA are just going to have immense blowback. I don't think that this is a good decision for them, but I'm not going to stop them. I'm not going to be the one to say, hey, don't do this, because personally, I think me, like all of you, we want the truth to come out. We want to find out what's going on here. Maybe this is the only way we'll be able to see it. Who knows? Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.